So this is a red-tailed hawk. The call you're hearing is a red-tailed hawk. It just flew overhead. Actually, I don't know if it's a he or she, but it just flew overhead, landed in the trees above. Now, you often know that there's a hawk or a different raptor species in the area before you see or hear it. It is because the other birds start to alert and make calls and fly around often. And so you know something's up. If you see some variation in bird behavior, stop, look around and wait. And you may just spot why they're so concerned. A raptor in the area. So, a funny tidbit of information is when you're watching a movie, if they want to have a bald eagle call in a movie, they tend to not use the bald eagle's real call. Instead, they will use a red-tailed hawk. Which is a little confusing for new birders. And that is because the bald eagle's call is not as fierce. At least we don't consider it scary. So red-tailed hawk calls are used for bald eagle calls in movies. This red-tailed hawk is hanging over the pond somewhere. And if you happen to spot a red-tailed hawk after you see some bird commotion, you may be lucky enough to watch as other species dive bomb it or chase it. And that's always fun to watch. Often it's like crows or the blue jays, but it could be any species that'll try to chase the red-tailed hawk away. They often work as a team, different species, to eject the red-tailed hawk from their territories. Since the red-tail is just hanging out in a tree, all is calm here, except for the chipmunk, who is nearby and is making a little bit of calls, but I don't know if you can hear them. It's a little concerned, so otherwise all is calm. The other birds are either hiding or carefully foraging and keeping an ear out or an eye out for where the red-tailed hawk is. I've got all kinds of tips to identifying hawks that I will share in upcoming videos. With time, you can identify them by sound very easily. Some of the tricky ones are juvenile ones because they have different plumage from their parents and can be pretty close in coloration to different species. So that takes the most time to be able to identify the juveniles. But adults are pretty easy to identify once you have studied them and birded and look for them for a while. Going over here, I see there's a robin. He's just hanging out. Oh, well, he hopped down from the grave over there, but he's foraging despite the hawk being nearby. But he's keeping an eye. And yeah. So we're in a different section of this cemetery, but again, beautiful trees. We've got evergreens and oaks seem to be, oh, and some maples are the primary trees here. All native species, all great for birds. Again, when you're birding, like say a cemetery, it's often good to be very quiet. So if you're with multiple people, if you guys are talking, you'll miss birds. So I like to go alone and pause and listen and spend a good amount of time because birds pop in, pop out. Some of them are nesting here, but like the red-tailed just arrived, flew in, still calling. So haven't been able to spot where he is. Making calls from somewhere. It'd be neat if he flushed. Now, when we say flushed, that means the bird comes out of wherever its position is. And we often say that we flush birds because we disturb them. So if a bird was sitting on a branch or doing something and we got too close, we can inadvertently flush a bird. So good ethics in birding is to give birds their space so they don't flush and allow another species to flush the bird. A songbird that's angry that the red-tail is around and flushes him, or a squirrel that flushes him. Yeah, it's best not to be you that's flushing the birds so that they're not so stressed. So that was an unexpected surprise. I was getting ready to depart the cemetery when the red-tail arrived. One thing I should share is that if you do not see a raptor, but you hear it, don't assume that it's there, because there are species of songbird that can mimic a hawk or other raptor to the point that you're convinced it has to be around. So as a general idea, if you're keeping a list, especially if you're submitting it to eBird or another platform to share with the public, if you don't see it, don't put it down, because blue jays can imitate hawks and other raptor species to the point that even a trained ear can be mistaken and think that there's a raptor around. And there are a few other species of birds in the United States that can sound like other species. But it's the one I encounter the most is the blue jay imitating things. And I have been fooled before. So keep that in mind when you're birding. Try to see the raptors and consider that you might be hearing a blue jay pretending to be one. All right, it's Birder Kelly K. Until next time, signing off.